Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan and today we'll be talking about mergers and acquisitions. Because that's exactly where we find Boba Fett in his new TV series. He's taken out Jabba the Hutt's major domo Bib Fortuna and has established himself as the new owner of Jabba's criminal enterprise. But unfortunately, in the process of the acquisition, when Boba Fett killed Bib Fortuna, he also lost access to which assets Jabba the Hutt actually owned. In an attempt to save Boba Fett from losing major streams of revenue, because we really do care here at Generation Tech, today we'll be taking a look at Jabba the Hutt's criminal enterprise and breaking down all of his assets and criminal activities. The Hutt family has long burned their bridges with the Republic government. This is because of their many crimes, especially those related to trade restrictions and tariffs. The Hutt's location in the Outer Rim gives them the ability to have access to many different types of resources for relatively cheap prices. This is because there are more undiscovered deposits of resources in the Outer Rim and at the same time less infrastructure to help you bring those precious minerals back. Unlike the areas controlled by the Trade Federation and Techno Union, Hutt space was still relatively underdeveloped and lacked large industrial operations. The Hutts don't really care for long-term investments in infrastructure. They have long relied on slave labor forces to extract materials and wealth from planets and would continue doing so despite it being an illegal practice within Republic space. When the Rebel Alliance managed to destroy the Death Star, the Empire became very focused on replacing their losses. They required even more resources to rebuild their Navy and Stormtrooper Corps. Darth Vader would ultimately be sent to Jabba the Hutt to broker a deal for the Hutts to provide Imperial shipyards with labor and raw resources. This deal would cover all sorts of resources ranging from Doomium to Durasteel to even coaxium. Making this deal with the Empire was extremely lucrative for Jabba the Hutt because it basically gave him immunity from the Imperial crackdown against crime in the Outer Rim. All of Jabba the Hutt's main competitors would be hassled by Imperial authorities. This allowed Jabba the Hutt to basically propel himself to the top of the criminal underworld. For the Empire, it was better having one large crime lord at the top that they controlled, rather than a dozen competing families and gangs that tried to kill each other. The fact that Jabba the Hutt was able to meet all of the resource requirements from the Imperial contract shows us just how large the Hutt's empire was at the time. Not only did they have the logistical capacity to take on huge resource gathering operations, they also had the manpower and slaves to actually meet those demands as well. All this talk about being a criminal overlord probably has everyone thinking about becoming one themselves. Well, I'll take that as a cue to tell you guys about today's sponsor, OwnASaber.com. They have a New Year's special from now until January 20th. All lightsabers are 20% off, and anyone who buys a lightsaber during this period of time will enter a giveaway, in which 3 customers will win a free Lightbearer Xenopixel lightsaber. Winners of this contest will be announced on their Instagram page and notified via email. Also, for Generation Tech fans, use our discount code of MEOW, that's all caps, in order to get another 10% off. The world of Kessel was extremely important to the legal and legal galactic spice trade. The planet itself was ruled by King Yoruba of the Yoruba family. They allowed organizations like the Pike Syndicate or even Empire to carry out mining operations on the planet. Further down the supply chain were individuals like the Hutt families who controlled large fleets of freighters which were outfitted for smuggling operations. These smugglers took the biggest risk and therefore were also awarded the highest amount of money. But even then, it was a risky business. For instance, Han Solo was considered one of Jabba's best smugglers, and still, he lost an entire shipment of spice when he was boarded by an Imperial patrol craft. This is why the smuggler has such a large bounty on him. Smuggling was about more than just hiring the right captains to do the job. It was also about maintaining these trade routes and hiring mercenaries to protect them. It also meant making sure that the right authorities were paid to look the other way. With the Empire increasingly tightening its grip on every aspect of life, smuggled goods became more expensive and were a powerful stream of revenue in the years before Jabba died. Now in Legends, there's a lot more information about the wider spice smuggling network. And the Hutts were actually involved in Legends in the mining and refinement of all types of spices as well as their transport. It'll be interesting to see if this is still the case in the book of Boba Fett. Because of the highly illegal nature of these drugs and their popularity, especially in the more civilized Inner Rim, spice trading remained one of the most lucrative illicit activities a crime lord could get themselves involved in. It should be mentioned that Jabba's smuggling network could be used for much more than just spice. He was also known for trading rare artifacts, living beings, and of course exotic animals. So during the Phantom Menace, Jabba the Hutt's family technically had control over Tatooine. This is according to the Hutt High Council's ruling. But in reality, another Hutt known as Gardula was in control of the day-to-day operations on the planet. She was actually working with shadowy Sith investors to fund a massive overhaul of the planet's local pod racing circuit. She wanted to turn Tatooine into an off-the-grid gambling paradise. The result was the Bootna Eve Classic, but by 32 BBY, Jabba the Hutt had seized both control and praise of this event. Races like this had a heavy gambling element associated with it. All sorts of bets, including bets that involved gambling with sentient beings' lives, were allowed, and Jabba the Hutt's bookies took a share of everything. It should be noted that in the years following the 32 BBY Bootna Eve Classic, Jabba the Hutt would reduce the number of laps in the race and add new areas to the course to make the race even more profitable. Tatooine was just not a very interesting place. It probably wasn't even that important to Jabba the Hutt, other than the fact that his operations were located on the planet. But there was money to be squeezed out of the local environment, and Jabba the Hutt made sure that his fat, slimy tail was involved in everything. For instance, during the Great Drought, the moisture farming industry more or less collapsed on Tatooine, yet Jabba the Hutt still sent out his enforcers to collect water taxes from homesteads. This was kind of a new thing. It was said that these taxes were levied because Jabba the Hutt wanted to take a bath in a large pool of water. Jabba also collected protection fees from many of the local businesses. We see Boba Fett visit one of them, the Sanctuary, while he's doing rounds and collecting payments. While protection rackets are usually very exploitative and prey on local small businesses, on Tatooine most towns lack true law enforcement, so having one of these criminal lords backing you was one of the safest ways to guarantee that your business would not be harassed. But Jabba the Hutt didn't just demand tribute and protection from local businesses. He also demanded that local government officials that ran the major towns of Tatooine to pay him extortion money or suffer the consequences. I guess Jabba the Hutt had enough mercenary and grunts with blasters to basically create an army to impose his will on this planet. When Boba Fett takes over Jabba's enterprise, however, the mayor of Mos Espa not only refuses to give tribute to him, he even demands Boba Fett to give tribute back to him. Boba Fett will have to straighten out the situation. If the local government forces don't fear him, they might even try to do their job and kick criminal enterprises like Boba Fett's out of town. They might even start doing crazy things like collecting property tax and providing services. Either way, Boba Fett needs to understand that Tatooine is not a major market for his business operations. More money can be made off-world, but he does have a huge incentive to keep his local area in check and fearful, or at least respectful, of his criminal enterprise. Tatooine only works as a hideout when the locals are also going to help protect your interests as well. So being a benevolent and kind ruler might be a good idea in the long run. Famous criminal leaders like Pablo Escobar understood the value of not taking a huge dump in your local community so that it could protect him from rival gangs and even the government and the state. So guys, I know ever since Jabba the Hutt died, a lot of business analysts out there have been downgrading the Jabba criminal enterprise stock on the Coruscant exchange, but this is a company that is really undervalued. Its PE ratio is extremely low. It's near like 2 to 3. And I know Jabba has lost control of all of these various enterprises, but I believe that Boba Fett has the ability to rein in a lot of these operations. And even if he just reins in half of those operations, we're still looking at a stock that's worth maybe 4 to 5 times the price it's trading at right now. Now, technically, guys, I'm not a fiduciary and I'm not allowed to give financial advice on Earth, but in the Star Wars universe, anything can happen, so you can't arrest me. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.